Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Maya Trabulsi. Thank you for joining us. The Department of Homeland Security is now screening social media accounts, looking for evidence of anti-Semitic activity in person or online. Today's announcement says that activity would be grounds for denying immigration benefits to people trying to become permanent residents and foreign students. It came hours before a scheduled rally at UC San Diego to protest the sudden termination of some student visas. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer was there.
And I, for one, refuse to stay silent.
In front of the Geisel Library, dozens of UC San Diego activists made their voices heard, loud and clear.
We are here to say one simple thing. Not on our watch, not in our America.
Protesting against student visa revocations, Daniel Soria helped to organize the event.
The only wrong these students committed was attaining an education, expressing opinions, joining our community, exercising rights that belong to each and every one of us.
In recent weeks, several international university students in the U.S. have been taken by immigration agents or had their legal status questioned. UCSD says 5 of its students had their visas revoked, and a 6th one was detained at the border and deported.
I was born here as an American citizen, but mostly all my family, my community, even my brother's friends and my friends that I have made during my years here are immigrants.
Early Wednesday afternoon, dozens of activists gathered and marched across campus with megaphones and posters, including San Diego resident and 4th-year UC San Diego student Denise Lopez, who was there to stand for those who couldn't.
I haven't seen my uncle for 10 years because of deportation. So this makes me want to speak in my own voice for my family, for my friends, because I don't want to see my friends taken away from me.
This is the land of the free.
The rally coincides with the new federal policy to screen aliens' social media activity for anti-Semitism. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services says it's looking for social media content showing a non-citizen supports anti-Semitic terrorism organizations or activities. The agency, which is part of the Department of Homeland Security, says that content would be a negative factor for people applying for green cards or student visas. Those at the rally say the government has been targeting and attempting to censor those with certain political opinions.
Lawful political speech and association are not crimes in this country. They are not valid grounds for deportation in our law and in our democratic tradition.
So what are the students at the protests hoping to see change?
To the federal immigration judges here in San Diego and no-time base and detention facilities, do your duty. Do not rubber stamp these deportations. Scrutinize every case. If the government claims these students pose a threat, insist they prove it with actual evidence.
A smaller group of protesters took the trolley Wednesday afternoon to rally outside of the San Diego County Courthouse at the John Rhodes Federal Judicial Center downtown. There, they plan to deliver letters with the hope that federal judges would listen to their words. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Well, we're dropping down to about the mid-50s tonight. The clouds are sticking with us overnight, and then into tomorrow morning, we're going to have more of the low clouds and the fog that we had this morning. So especially if maybe you had some visibility issues on your way to work this morning, expect more of the same tomorrow. We'll break down what to expect for the rest of the week coming up.
Another wild day on Wall Street as President Trump announced a 90-day pause on his new tariffs for most countries except China. U.S. stocks immediately surged, with the Dow shooting up nearly 8%, a gain of more than 2,900 points. The S&P 500 added 9.5%, its best day since October 2008. Karen Kafa is in Washington with a look at what these market swings mean for everyone.
President Donald Trump's sweeping tariff plan has unleashed turmoil in the stock market.
If you're like me, I am first generation in the stock market. So to see these type of drops is heartbreaking and very scary. And we need to acknowledge that and say, it's okay that you're scared.
When investors believe in a company's ability to deliver on the goods and services they've promised and consumer demand for them, that company's stock often becomes more desirable and pushes a company's value higher. Losses across the 30 diverse companies that compose the closely watched Dow, from Apple to McDonald's to Walmart, mean investors are anxious about what broad tariffs and a global trade war mean for the future.
The longer this lasts, the more of an economic drag it is, with uncertainty both by the consumer, investor, and certainly people that run companies. And the longer that lasts, the more real economic damage we're doing.
When a company's stock goes down, they can eventually be challenged to make decisions about infrastructure, like hiring and the number of people they can continue to employ. They may also hike prices to cover costs, which can also squeeze consumers. And for those lamenting retirement losses as the market has turned down, experts say it's important to look forward, not back, and stay on top of that money.
What's really important to you always, whether you're taking a loss or not, is what will do well ahead.
In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
The votes are in for the San Diego County District 1 Supervisor special election. KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says two candidates have emerged with a clear lead: Chula Vista Mayor John McCann and Imperial Beach Mayor Paloma Aguirre.
The results show McCann and Aguirre will move on to a runoff election. McCann has 44% of the votes counted so far, and Aguirre has 32%. In third place was San Diego City Council member Vivian Moreno, with just 13%. Last night, McCann said he was feeling grateful for the support from the district.
I'm thankful. I'm thankful for my volunteers. I'm thankful for all the people who voted for me.
Aguirre also expressed her gratitude. She said she's humbled by the results so far.
We need to make sure that we have that strong leadership at the county, and I think our message has resonated with the residents.
Those results mean Aguirre and McCann will be facing off again in July, in a race that will decide whether Democrats or Republicans have a majority on the County Board of Supervisors. In the newsroom, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
It is expensive to run a special election. According to the Registrar of Voters Office, it costs an estimated $3.3 million. The registrar says a lot of that money goes to staffing for voting centers open 8 to 9 hours per day for 11 days. And the final day, centers were open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. They also had to pay to print and mail ballots to over 370,000 registered voters. The registrar says the estimated costs for the primary and runoff were based on another special election.
What we base our estimates was the 2023 special vacancy elections for District 4 of the Board of Supervisors. And that's where we estimated $6.6 million total for conducting both elections.
More than 57,000 people voted in the special election. That is about 15% turnout. Meanwhile, county supervisors shot down a proposal to delay the budget approval process until October. The request made by Supervisor Montgomery Stepp would have called for the approval of a recommended budget in June, which would be amended after the new District 1 supervisor is elected. Officials say the county is facing a funding gap of $138 to $140 million. It is no secret the city of San Diego is dealing with budget challenges. In our latest Why It Matters segment, Voice of San Diego CEO Scott Lewis explains how that has bled into a lawsuit against the city.
Recently, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria reorganized the city's management structure. I know that doesn't sound very important, but stick with me. When he did, he eliminated the position of Chief Operating Officer, and that meant the Chief Operating Officer, Eric Dargan, lost his job. At the time, the mayor made it clear he had eliminated Dargan's position and not fired him for cause. Now, that is up for dispute. A little background. If an employee loses their job, it's generally in one of two ways. Their employer either fired them for cause or eliminated their position. The key difference is whether the employer is allowed to replace the person. If you fire someone for cause, you can replace them. If you eliminate a position to save money, you can't replace them. The position is gone. Dargan just sued the city. Dargan is black, and he claims that he was the victim of racial discrimination. He says he didn't get any severance when he lost his job. The city, namely Mayor Gloria, unlawfully discriminated against Dargan based on his race, among other things, lying to him regarding the 3-month severance in order to induce Dargan to leave his job in Houston, Texas, and by terminating Dargan without cause. The complaint makes sense. Remember, the mayor had said he eliminated Dargan's position. Essentially, he had laid him off to save money. But then the mayor's chief of staff surprised everyone last week when she told us that was not the case. She told Voice of San Diego the mayor fired Dargan for cause, and that's why he didn't get any severance. She said in a statement, quote, "While eliminating the COO position provides budgetary savings, Mr. Dargan was, in fact, terminated for cause." Remember, if you fire someone for cause, you can replace them. If you eliminate the position to save money, you cannot. In this case, the mayor seems to want to have avoided the impression that he fired Dargan, but by doing that, he cut himself off from being able to replace Dargan. Now the city has yet another legal challenge to deal with. I'm Scott Lewis for Voice of San Diego, and that's why it matters.
Voice of San Diego is one of our partners for the Public Matters Initiative. You can learn more at kpbs.org/Public Matters. After months of public feedback, the City of San Diego is adjusting the price of proposed trash pickup fees. There are 3 options. All single-family homeowners will get 95-gallon bins, which will cost around $47 monthly. Customers can opt for smaller bins, so a 65-gallon container will be just under $43, and a 35-gallon bin will cost under $37. Our media partner KGTV spoke to the Director of Environmental Services.
Trash is just something that you want to be dealt with seamlessly. You don't want to think about it the same way you don't want to think about turning your tap on and clean water coming out. This fee, as proposed, would go a long way to making sure that this operation is well resourced to provide that level of service that I think the general public is expecting and that they deserve.
It's good to note that everyone will get 95-gallon bins for recycling and organic waste, no matter which option they choose. It's part of the city's effort to encourage people to reduce their trash by recycling. Threats of tariffs on imports aren't stopping shoppers from spending ahead of this Easter holiday. Jen Sullivan breaks down the costs.
Easter spending is expected to soar this year despite a lot of economic uncertainty.
Consumers are expecting to really go out for Easter this year.
The National Retail Federation estimates consumers will shell out more than $23 billion this year, with people spending around $189 per person on average. That's up $12 from last year. Catherine Cullen from the National Retail Federation says even though some items are more expensive due to inflation, it's not holding people back from shopping.
Through all of these tumultuous times, consumers have been very protective of these holidays.
According to the NRF's recent survey, consumers will spend the most on candy and food. And nothing says Easter like an egg-stravaganza.
Easter is our highest consumption period of the entire year.
Emily Metz with the American Egg Board says Americans are expected to eat or decorate 3 billion eggs this spring season. The good news is egg prices have come down in the last few weeks, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Metz says fewer avian flu cases have helped stabilize prices, but they're still much higher than this time last year.
That has made a significant impact. It's allowing our system to recover.
So how can shoppers save this holiday?
Certainly think about which decorations you can reuse from last year, whether or not you can encourage people to participate in a potluck.
Colin also recommends painting wooden eggs instead of real ones. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
April is Stress Awareness Month. Experts say many people may not have all the tools that they need to find relief from it. Mandy Gaither talks to a psychologist about what healthy ways to cope.
From home life to work life, you're likely juggling several responsibilities at once, and that can take a toll.
We're living in incredibly stressful times these days, and unfortunately, we often go on autopilot, and we don't necessarily take a step back and recognize all the sources of stress in our lives and how it might be affecting us emotionally and physically.
Psychologist Adam Borland with Cleveland Clinic says sometimes people go down unhealthy avenues when trying to cope, like drinking alcohol or using other substances. Instead, he challenges those who are stressed to focus on a healthy daily routine that includes healthy eating, exercising, and getting quality sleep. Focusing on self-care can also help your body recharge.
I often encourage my patients to engage in meditation or some sort of deep breathing exercise.
Borland says to also engage in social activities, maintain communication with sources of support, and tap into hobbies or creative outlets that you enjoy and can give you a break. He says to also stay in touch with your doctor or mental health professional and monitor behaviors that may be caused by stress that seem unusual, like arguments with loved ones or a drop in work productivity.
We always want to take a step back and get a sense of where is my stress level right now and what can I do to prioritize self-care.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
The Imperial Valley is home to more than 60% of the California's burrowing owls, tiny brown owls that nest in underground tunnels. But as KPBS's Corey Suzuki reports, the state is now asking whether those owls need more protection.
The sun is setting as Wendy Miller pulls her white Nissan up along a dusty embankment, just a few miles from the Salton Sea. She points out the window at a tiny tunnel in the ground.
The entrance to their burrow, it's like, is it under the log?
When you meet Wendy, she seems like a pretty serious person. She's a lawyer, a public defender here in the Imperial Valley, who represents foster kids and minors facing prosecution. But she also has this infectious laugh that spills out every so often. Like when she sees the tiny bird peering out at us from just across the embankment, a western burrowing owl. Burrowing owls are the reason Wendy moved here just a few years ago. In the mornings and evenings, she moonlights as a wildlife photographer, roaming around the county to document the birds that live near the Salton Sea. The tiny 9-inch tall owls with their brown feathers and wide yellow eyes are her favorite subjects.
And they seem like little people because there's an intelligence there that you can feel and a curiosity it's endearing.
The Imperial Valley is home to the largest population of burrowing owls in California. Experts say that's because of the network of canals that wind through the valley, carrying water from the Colorado River to the region's fields of lettuce, carrots, and other crops.
The crop types themselves predict where burrowing owls are going to be.
Peter Bloom is a zoologist who has worked with burrowing owls here. He says they tend to live close to fields of alfalfa, one of Imperial County's top crops.
The alfalfa grows and matures. The arthropod population, that is insects, spiders, scorpions, and such, increases also. And burrowing owls in the desert in particular feed most on insects.
Bloom says that combination of the canals, which create places for the owls to live, and the farms, which create more food, have allowed the species to thrive. But in almost every other part of California, it's a different story. Across the state, burrowing owls have been disappearing over the last 20 years, especially in coastal regions like San Diego, Monterey, and the Bay Area. Conservation groups say that's largely because of decades of suburban expansion, paving over the places where the owls live. In some cases, they also blame solar and wind farms.
We're kind of in an emergency situation now.
Jeff Miller is a senior conservation advocate with the national environmental group, the Center for Biological Diversity. He's not related to Wendy.
We're on the verge of losing them from most areas of the state probably in the next couple decades if we don't do something drastic to turn that around.
Last year, the center submitted a petition to the California Fish and Game Commission, along with several other conservation groups, asking the state to list the burrowing owl as an endangered or threatened species. Either of those new designations would give the species new legal protection from being killed or removed from their habitats. That decision could have big implications for the Imperial Valley. The farming industry is nervous about new environmental regulation. The region is also hoping to increase its renewable energy sector. In a letter last year, the Imperial County Board of Supervisors argued that listing the species could hurt those industries and limit job prospects in the region. They asked the state to carve out an exemption for Imperial County.
We didn't want Imperial Valley agricultural interests feeling like they were being picked out and going to be punished.
Jeff says conservation groups are also split on what to do in the Imperial Valley. Some say owls here are facing too many risks. But Jeff worries about the political opposition that might come from farmers and other industries.
As long as they keep, generally doing things that keep burrowing owls around and allow them to exist, then there's probably no reason to have to list that population.
At their meeting in October, state officials seemed open to striking a balance. Here's Fish and Game Commissioner Erica Zavaleta.
It's not this choice we have to make between renewable energy or housing or food production and protecting wildlife. We have shown as a state we can do both. If anyone can do both, we can.
Wendy Miller certainly hopes that's the case. She agrees that the Imperial Valley may need a more nuanced approach.
It would be terrible to lose them. But I think you have to take into account human needs too. And you have to figure out how to balance that.
Back near the Salton Sea, we turn to leave the owls behind. Wendy says her goodbyes.
So yeah, this is really special, and I hope that people don't screw it up.
The state has another 6 months to evaluate the health of burrowing owls and make a final decision. In Calipatria, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Well, the temperatures have been rising, and that warming trend is going to continue throughout the rest of the work week. We'll even see some record-challenging temperatures in some areas. The other thing we have to contend with is the low clouds and the fog just for the morning. So let's break this down step by step, starting with what to expect for tonight. We're dropping down to the upper 40s in Oceanside, mid-50s in San Diego, upper 50s there in Borrego Springs. One thing we all have in common, though, we are dealing with the clouds, most of us at least, throughout the overnight hours. And then into tomorrow, that's when to start out the morning. We're going to have some of the fog and the low clouds once again. So that's where maybe add in some extra time, especially if you usually have visibility issues when we have the low clouds and the fog, then take that into account for your morning commute. Otherwise, we are going to have some clouds throughout the day, not just the low clouds to start off the morning. Temperature-wise, we're at 70 in Oceanside, 71 in San Diego there. Near 100 in Borrego Springs, 98. It is already that time that we're inching closer and closer to 100 degrees in some areas. I mentioned the record challenging highs in some areas. Imperial, California, we're looking at 101 for your Thursday, set to break the previous record of 98 from 2018 there. They're not the only ones across the Southwest. We have several cities set to break some of those previous records, or at least come close. Let's talk about your 5-day outlook, though. We're looking at 70 degrees for your Thursday. We continue to warm up Friday. Then temperatures drop in the weekend closer to our historical averages. So we're not really dropping too far, just kind of back to normal. Further inland, we're in the 80s Thursday and Friday. Then we drop back down to the 70s for the weekend, and 60s to start off the work week next week. In the mountains, we're in the 60s, climbing up to 68 for Friday, and then we level out closer to where we should be this time of year. In the desert, we are hitting 100 degrees on Friday. Yes, we are already there, but things do level out into the weekend, and especially Monday, we are back at 89 degrees. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather's Anna Azalian.
The Oceanside Museum of Art is celebrating neurodivergent artists with a new exhibit. KPBS reporter Katie Heisen says the art is as wide-ranging as the autism spectrum itself.
The rooms are filled with found object lamps, photographs, and fabrics, and the paintings of Austin John Jones. His self-portrait smiles, but inside the brain, a small version of himself is curled up and crying.
It just shows what depression can do to someone who, even though they seem happy.
His art isn't only about autism, it's also universal.
Being on the spectrum is just a part of who I am. While it has, determined certain aspects of my life, it has influenced my art. I wouldn't say it's everything about my art.
One piece on aluminum shows a person with a hole inside their chest and brain.
Certain people whether they're on the spectrum or not, might either at times feel out-of-body experiences, which could be either a lack of empathy, represented by the hollowness of the hole in the chest, or a lack of awareness or mindfulness by the empty hole in the brain.
In the next painting, a pink hand offers up a brain.
This is called a peace of mind. It's literally just handing one's thoughts on a plate to someone else. It's almost kind of a representation of how some people on the spectrum just speak their mind and, you know, almost unfiltered.
The exhibit was crafted with neurodivergent visitors in mind. Noise-canceling headphones are available at the entrance. Boxes are filled with touchable art materials, offering matching sensory experiences. There's a chill room with beanbags and curtains. It's a collaboration with a local nonprofit, The Art of Autism, co-founded by Deborah Musiccar.
Many people who are autistic have trouble with like executive functioning skills, and so they may have tremendous talent, but they have trouble hooking up avenues to share their art or their creative ability.
Now, visitors can explore art they may never have had access to otherwise. Jones is one of more than a dozen artists on the spectrum whose work will be displayed through August 3rd.
I also really hope it empowers people to realize how beautiful each individual is with varying degrees of being on the spectrum. We have a voice just as much as anyone else, and I hope this show shows that.
Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
And check out the new KPBS Arts and Culture podcast. It's called The Finest, and a new episode is out tomorrow. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.